Okay, take it away, Gary.
Well, I have the immense honor and privilege today to introduce to you our speakers for the fellowship here. These are some dear friends and former neighbors of mine, actually, David and Holly Hughes. The name may sound familiar to you because David was a running back for the Seahawks or were you running back or were you a fullback? What was the technical?
Fullback, but I did play some running back, single back stuff.
All right. But I believe he had a 6-year career with the Seahawks. And it's a little known fact, some of you don't know that he was also a Bronco, but not the Denver variety, the Boise State variety.
There you go.
So his team made it trendy to become a Bronco, and they did really well thanks to David. But they grew up in Hawaii. I think they were married in the early 80s, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
And like I said, we had the privilege of having them as our neighbors, and they just a wonderful, beautiful family, and just a heart and love for Jesus, and it shines through in everything they do. And after finishing football, was on staff at Antioch Bible Church, doing missions work, and then more recently, they started a work called Paraclete 46. I'm trying to remember your old number. Paraclete 46 is the name of their ministry, and I'm sure they'll tell you more about that. But working with high school kids and coaching at Rainier Beach High School. But just, I'm so glad actually that it's not just David here today, but it's David and Holly, because they minister together, and they're just a wonderful couple, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the Lord's gonna speak to us through them today. So Dave and Holly, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm going to jump off first here, and then I'll give David the rest of the time, but we kind of decided to divide it up a little bit. And I'm not sure what all everybody wanted to hear, but I was just going to give you a little background. So we were married. We are 40 years married. 41. And don't you know, of all things, I said I'd never get married on Valentine's Day, and wouldn't you know it, that's our anniversary now. So we have 5 children and 12 grandchildren. And in our bio, it says that 2 have made their heavenly touchdowns. And we lost our second child, our second daughter, in a car accident 14 years ago. And we also lost our my firstborn son 7 years ago. He was born with a virus called enterovirus that took them several days to nail down, and it just destroyed his innards. So the Lord decided he had more use for them at home than we did here. We are grateful for the opportunity to come and fellowship with you this morning. I'm especially excited when I see a gathering of men of God, because our country is so in need of just that. Men of God who are committed to Christ, who are committed to prayer, who are committed to their families, who love God and his word. And now that we're getting up there in age, it makes me want to tear up. And so thank you, each of you, from the bottom of my heart as a wife, to know that there are not just this 15 group of men, or if there are any more this morning, but there are many. There are thousands and thousands across our nation and the world. But we all know it's an interesting time, an exciting time to be alive.
And Holly, I don't know if you were aware, but the history of the fellowship, we have been specifically men, and then a couple of years ago, just because we were really the heart of the original founder was that it be ministry leaders, that we expanded our group. So we have men and women who are part of it too now. So it's great to have Julie here, and Margaret's here as well. But we get a group of women too now being a part of this group.
Oh, now I see Margaret and Tom. Can't see the last name, but yay.
And Julie down there waving.
Julie. Can't see Julie's name. Anyway, but thank you. Oh, now I see you, Julie. So thank you. Anyway, we became believers. It's kind of a long story, so I'm just going to get right to the nut of it. We were attending a Seahawk Bible study and it was led by Chuck and Barb Snyder. And many of you know them. And we were actually going through a precept study called Covenants of God. And David and I were both raised Catholic. And when we hit our memory verse of there's only one God and one mediator between man and God, that is the man Christ Jesus, that blew us out of the water. I was thinking, I asked him, I don't know why I told Father so-and-so all the stuff that I did. He goes, well, I didn't tell him my stuff. I said, what? He goes, no, I lied. So I said, oh, you're going for sure. So we worked through that. And Barb, we asked her, what was the deal? What does that mean to be saved? That's so weird to a Catholic. And she let us know. And we went home that night and got on our knees together beside the bed. And we committed our lives to Christ. And from that point forward, it's been an adventure. And like Garrett had mentioned, David did play with the Seahawks. He went on to play for a year with the Steelers. But it was there in the Steelers that he blew his knee out. And like God always does, he said he fell to the ground in pain. And within seconds, he felt nothing because he heard the Lord say, just trust me and do what I ask you to do, and I'll take care of you. And that really is what we've been doing since. It's extremely unorthodox. Most of the stuff that we do is, but God is not in a box. So we trust him in the unorthodox as well. We have our oldest daughter lives in Greece. She serves in a ministry called Hellenic Ministries. She's married to a national and has five of our grandchildren. We have our eldest son is the lead pastor at Grace Community in Michigan. And he has the other 6 of our grandkids there. And we have 2 that are living in Hawaii now. One is in the National Guard and is a teacher at Kamehameha High School. And our youngest has been working with Sherwin-Williams since he was in high school. So he transferred there. So it kept us now in Hawaii. I think I'm just going to pass it over to you now and let you go with the ministry.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, as you all know, over the years, as you walk with the Lord, he has promised to make us more like his son, and a lot of times that's a very trying situation
Uncomfortable.
and very uncomfortable. But it is the best training camp I've ever been to, a school of hard knocks with Jesus. And but over the years, like Holly said, when the Lord spoke to me clearly on that field after my knee was torn, I said, okay, so that's been our calling card, and we've been following him ever since, in that kind of way. And when I was on staff at Antioch, I knew I needed a step down, and it was weird because he didn't say where to go. He just said, your time has come to an end. And so we told Hutch and Mark that the Lord is leading us to something else. We didn't know where, we didn't know what we're gonna do. It was just kind of like the Lord of the Rings movie when Gandalf had that free fall and he's fighting this dragon or whatever that thing was. That's just kind of how our life has been. But we knew, because of all the times he's done this in our life, you kind of get a little more comfortable with the free fall. So the first time wasn't so fun. The second time was a little better, and then it's just gotten easier over time. And so, because you're gonna land somewhere, it's just when and where. And so when he told us to, we were actually visiting some of our missionaries overseas, and I told her right at the start of the trip that we're probably going to give our 6 months notice to Hutch, and then we can find out who, train up somebody or get somebody involved. But by the time we got back, it was like, we got to give our 2 weeks. So, and then Hutch mentioned, he goes, I don't understand, because when God calls people, he calls them to something, not from something. I said, yeah, I know. That's kind of strange. I said, but you know how the Lord's worked in our life. It's been very unorthodox. So anyhow, so a week after we told our staff, after another staff meeting, I went back to prepare for our mission staff meeting, and all of a sudden the Lord just downloaded on me. So I just started writing stuff down, and that was the beginning of Paraclete 46.
Can I interrupt you for a
yeah.
second? Actually, it was more of an actual framework, because the Lord had actually given David the vision 17 years prior, when we were in Idaho and our oldest daughter was in high school. And he really thought we were supposed to start a tutoring program for the athletes there at the school. So there was another gal who wanted to pray with us about the whole thing. And so she did. For 3 years, we prayed. And I looked like a crazy mom walking around the school praying, walking up and down the road, because there's a 40-acre lot across the school with nothing on it, that I thought that's where the Lord wanted us to put the ministry. And for 3 years, there was nothing. And then Hutch asked us to come back on staff with Antioch. So it took 14 years.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah, it took a long time. It was
Yeah.
17 years from that vision that the Lord actually put a framework and legs to what he had called David to do. And we thought nothing of it when we left Idaho. But when he got that vision after the meeting, and we were leaving the office that day, in my mind, I thought, Lord, we don't even know where we're going. We know you're calling us to go somewhere, but I don't know where. And if we get in the car and step on the gas, we're going to end up somewhere. So if we get into prayer with you and we beseech you for that, well, okay, I know you're going to let us know when you want us to know, so I'm going to just let it go. Why am I even asking? So we got in the car, and David handed me the paper, and our oldest son called me on the phone. I called him to tell him, we're going to go pray. We're going to go park somewhere and pray. We'll be home later. The gal who had been praying in Idaho with us for that 3 years, we were still very tight to this day. In fact, she's one of our board members now. She had called the house and asked our son, what is going on with your parents? I've been trying to get a hold of them for 3 weeks. Well, 3 weeks would have put us back at when we told Hutch and Mark, we've got to go. And he said, oh, you didn't know they're stepping off the staff? She said, oh my gosh, you need to tell them to get that Paraclete ministry started right away. Just out of the blue, this phone call came. So as I'm talking to my son and he's telling me this, and I'm looking at the paper that David has given me, it has the framework for Paraclete on it. And I look at him and I said, what is this? And almost simultaneously, he says Paraclete. My son says, Auntie says, get the Paraclete ministry started. And that's when I just thought, why even bother asking? You're just going to spell it out for us. So, which makes it easier. He's always saying, just give me the game plan, Lord. Just give me the game plan.
Yeah. So I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but and so that's why I always ask the Lord you got to make it simple. I'm a football player. I need X's and O's and game plan and all that stuff. So as I go through life, that's just how it goes. And he understands I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. So he just says, okay, here, I'll make it easy for you. And so, so we started in the Valley in February of 2013. And yeah, I had an outline, but I didn't know how to, how do we even get it started? So I figured, you know what? I'm going to go check out the ministries in the Valley and see what kind of collaboration or what kind of needs are there as well. So that's what I did. That's how I got involved with dads. And Urban Impact was already part of our local mission team that we sponsored. And so as I got to know people, I went and met the principal and I told him, I said, the Lord's called me to come down here. And, he's probably thinking, well, if you're a Christian, you can't come into the school like this. But I didn't care because, if God's called me, then he's called me and he's going to make a way. And so he welcomed me with open arms and still to this day. And we're on our third principal now. The second one was a little more antagonistic, but God called him away. He had some health issues. And so he actually had to retire early. So like I said, God will take care of us. And so as we came into the Valley, it just kind of evolved where at the end of that first school year that one of the kids was going to get expelled. And because he hadn't been doing well in school and hasn't been coming to class. And so I was walking the hall and the counselor called me in and then called this young man in, said, we need to talk. And so he was failing and the plan they made for him was that he couldn't miss one day of school for the rest of the school year. We're talking, it was mid-April. So he still had almost 2 months to go. And that's how many classes he's missed. He's not a dumb kid, he's a very sharp kid, but tremendous trauma in his life. His stepmother was in prison for beating him and his two younger brothers. So that was the first thing. So he came, I asked the counselor if he could stay with me because the dad was taking him out of town. Mm-hmm. And then I looked at her and I said, well, can I do that? She goes, well, yeah, call your dad, TJ, and see if he'll let you stay with coach. And so because we had done Thanksgiving baskets and Christmas baskets to the team
and Easter
yeah.
Easter. That's the thing, guys. I'm gonna give you a little secret. Everybody does Thanksgiving and Christmas. Nobody ever remembers to go back for Easter.
So the dad was very comfortable with us, and so he let TJ stay with us, and that was kind of the beginning of these young men staying with us. Over the years, we
just counted up. It's like almost 50 that have come through the house, whether it be for a weekend or years.
Yeah.
And that one lived with us for 6 years.
Yeah. So anyhow, and that's what took off, and it's really interesting how God has given us tremendous favor, even in some difficult situations there. One thing I learned really quick is that officials in the state, at least the ones that we officiate our football games, I can count maybe on one hand that we got a fair shake in the last 9 years there. And I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the stigma about these kids. And they do come from a difficult background. They can be hard at times, but these kids, you'll fall in love with them. It's just amazing. And because they're looking for somebody to at least listen to them. And it's just so interesting. Kindness is not a thing on the South End. And so when you're kind to them, they respond, even when you have to tell them the hard things. And so I'm always mindful of speaking truth to these young men, because they don't hear it. And from home or pretty much any place in the valley, unless they go to church. And I remember the first time I spoke truth to this one man, because what he was doing was out of line. And so I just told him, I said, hey, you need to stop doing that. And that's not good for you. That's not good for them. It's just it's a lose-lose situation. And I can't remember what the situation was, but he goes, whoa, coach. He goes, you can't talk to me like that. I said, why? I said, so let's take a step back. So are you upset because I spoke to you that way? He goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, did I tell you the truth? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, so you want me to lie to you? And he goes, well, I guess not. So it's like the light bulb came on. It was like, oh, coach just speaks truth. And so that guy kind of set a flame on fire. And so after that, the kids responded way better to me. It was kind of interesting. That one. And the other thing was, I kept on telling them that you guys have to stay on top of your grades. And because even now, the school is not doing a good job. And personally, I think it's they're not educating them. I think they're indoctrinating them. And but 92% of our students are graduating, yet less than 50% of them pass math, science, and reading. Reading is the highest, 46.5%, I believe. Math and science are 20, 21, just dismal. So I don't know why we're boasting in 92% graduation rate, because they don't know anything. And that's why they go to the streets. And it's just the saddest thing. We do have, God has put this in our laps, and it's incredible. They've been trying to close down Rainier Beach for the last 7 to 10 years. Because it's been an eyesore. It's been, guns and all that stuff. And now the community has come out, and so they're going to rebuild the school. So it's going to cost, taxpayers like $350 million to rebuild the school. But the counselor that I work with there, she talked to the contractor, Leidig, and they're going to allow Rainier Beach kids that if they want to get into the trades, they're going to train them. And then they're going to do an OJT as while they're training them, and they're going to work at their school. So when the school is built, they'll all be journeymen. And so that's been an incredible blessing for me. That's a serious God thing. And so we've gotten some kids into the trade. So one of my board members is the state liaison with Renton Voltec, and the kids don't like thinking about doing the trades. It's just kind of interesting. I said, well, if you're not going to go into the internet world or social media world, working with Google and Facebook and all those guys, then if you need to make a living, this will change your life forever, because these kids are starting up they're going to start them, I think, at $28 an hour, doing this OJT thing. And they'll be, if they go into the electrical trade, they'll be commercial electricians and they'll be making $60+ an hour. We're talking six figures. I told them, I said, hey, you guys are gonna make more money than I did any of my first 4 years in the NFL. I said, you guys, this is good money. And so anyhow, so we're getting some guys. We got about 7 guys from this graduating class that are going to go into it. And we're focused in on the student athletes because not that we don't like the students. It's just student athletes.
No, we don't. I'm kidding.
Student athletes have a tougher job because they got to perform in the classroom as well as on the field. So with the tutoring center that we work with there, we're now, these kids are doing very well. In fact, one of the top offensive linemen this past school year, Josh Connerly Jr., since his sophomore year, he's had a 4.0. So I think his cumulative he finished in a 3.89 or 3.9 area. And now he's going to Oregon, but that was his choice.
We forgive him.
But that's okay. But that's the kind of kids we're starting to draw now. Kids who are actually interested in learning and are smart. We've got this young man who's coming in as a 9th grader in the fall, and very, very talented. All those private schools want him. And this young man is very educated. His dad's Nigerian from Nigeria. And they got over 5,000 books, he said, in their house. His dad's a college professor at UW. This kid is very knowledgeable. He's going to be a kid that we will use to help tutor some of his teammates because he's well educated. And it's really interesting, and it's actually fun when you see that. Yep.
I was going to mention that we do talk to them about Jesus because it sounds like it's all about education, but that's kind of our little toe in the door with them. And beyond taking them the holiday baskets and things, we circle back and call the families to just check in and have really made headway in just doing the visitation kinds of things. Several of the boys that had lived with us over the year, at one point we had 8 boys living in the house at one time, and my mom. I was caring for my mom. So that got a little bit interesting. And but we had attended, what was really fun was we had attended, the Katinas came to town and we're at Antioch. So Pastor Al called us, and we had most of the Samoan kids living with us at that point. So we took these 4 huge Samoan boys. The smallest one was Nelson.
Nelson's 245, 255.
Okay. And Nate was the biggest one.
Nate was 330. Oh no. Well, he was 6'6", but TJ was 380, 390.
Anyway, 4 really big ones. And
Yeah.
because we got there a little bit late, true to Al, he sits us in the front row. So, but unbeknownst to us, it was more like a revival because Pastor Sims came and gave his testimony. Well, it resonated big time with those young men, and all 4 of them stood up and accepted Christ. And they said, we want to go to his church. So we started taking them down south to that church, and 2 of them got baptized. And one of them that got baptized actually had earned a scholarship to Whitworth. And his first year was a nightmare. We knew it was going to be really difficult, just difficult, because these kids really don't have the tools in their noggin to deal with that level of education unless they've got somebody right next to them holding their hand and walking them down that road, which we thought was going to happen.
And he came from a family that was homeless.
He had lived in Tent City. He witnessed the shooting of the 2 people at Tent City. It was his cousins that did the shooting in Tent City. His family had graduated from Tent City into a motorhome living on the sides of the street. And he saved his mom from an engulfed in flame motorhome. He saved his brother's life, compressing the wound after the brother got shot a couple times in the stomach from a gang member. So this kid's been a lot of trauma, right? So he goes to Whitworth and is like this, and pretty much bombs out the first year and tells David, I don't think I'm going to make it. He has that January 1 class that can earn you grace, right? Back in. And so David told him, if you don't get an A, you're done. Like there's nothing else. And so he ends up calling David and goes, Coach. He goes, did you make it? He goes, oh, Coach, man. David's like, what'd you do? Did you not make it? He goes, I got an A. So he's there. And much to our chagrin, he's got a girlfriend, but we think it's his emotional support person because she's pulled him up and has walked alongside of him, and he's pulling out of it, and he's got 1 more year to go. So he's got to go back to a JUCO to get those 100 level classes. And that young man will be probably the first one in maybe generations that will graduate from college for his family. So we're super excited about him. The other big boy that was the first one that we took in has, he's taken a little bit of different road. And I told him that being a security guard at a weed shop is not a future. So he's still trying to figure it out. But we've got him in counseling now. And, but those are the graduates. We also started hosting right away the first summer, our first full year. That summer, we started hosting alumni barbecues and having the boys that had tied into David over for barbecue. And it has morphed and grown over the years to where Paul Tomlinson came down and put them through a budgeting class about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So several of them went through the 5-week budgeting class with him. And every time we have them, we ask them, what do you want to hear next? And these kids are hungry to learn. They want to know what is credit? How do I earn it? Why do I need it? How do you buy a house? How do you invest? They have all these really good questions. And so we're bringing people in and helping them with that kind of thing too. So as you can tell, it's a huge smorgasbord of stuff that we do. And it is coming alongside the student athletes as well as their families. And if they need help with whatever, we can try to figure it out and help them pay a bill or get groceries or gas money or anyway.
So, and then I'm working through with a couple of kids, a Bible study by Tony Evans, his Tony Evans Training Center. It's really good. We get together once a week and we talk about stuff, and it's an important part of the ministry that is just now starting to take root. A lot of these kids, they, for whatever reasons, they don't gravitate to church. When we got in the valley, we found out that one of the churches there, the pastor was molesting the girls. And instead of turning them in, they sent them down to a church in California.
He left and moved and started in the church.
So we started to realize, holy moly, we gotta take them out. So anyhow, I'll stop there. Any questions?
That's awesome. Thank you guys. Yeah, we got 16 people, or we did. I will have a few questions. I always throw in a quick one. I don't know. Tony Evans, the pastor in Texas.
Yes.
Yeah, we had Sherm Smith on here a few months ago, and he talked about the movie he was in, which Tony was a big part of, Show Me the Father.
Yeah.
And a lot of football players in there, and Sherm Smith was very generous with his time. He came a couple times here.
Yeah, and Sherman, good guy.
Yeah. The athlete Bible study, a lot of stuff happens there.
Yep.
Real quick, I wrote a note for you guys. I don't know if have you ever heard of or gotten in touch with Doug Wheeler, he started Zion Academy. I think it's changed or closed down, but he was involved with a 180 program that I think
Yes,
Pastor Drake knows about now, and talked a lot about getting young kids into trades.
Mhm.
yeah, that's Coach Dominic is over 180.
Mhm.
Yeah, good guy. They just had a bad situation a year ago.
Oh, the shooting? Or the,
Shooting, yeah,
yeah, we were, yeah. A couple of us went and prayed with them after that.
yeah.
Yeah, but so it's funny, the other, we have a kid in a private school up north, totally different world, completely. But their head is retiring, and he had a little breakfast, and I was up there with him and a few parents, and he was saying, the world is changing, and not all these kids need to go to college. And whether you go to the trade or on the other end, you got some super bright kid who knows how to code computers. What you talked about, the Google and the Facebook, they don't need a degree either. Sometimes they'll just take them if they know what to do. And the world's changing like that.
Yeah. I mean, we all know there's a lack of tradesmen anymore. We just went through it with Holly's family home in Hawaii. Her mom passed a year ago, January. So, but it had been run down. And so it was tough to find people, really hard to find people to do the work. And it's worse now. Well, Hawaii's always bad because you're in the middle of the Pacific. We don't make anything there. We make aloha. That's okay. I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Dave, thank you both for being here with us. David, a few minutes ago, you said you can count on one hand the number of times you thought these kids were getting a fair shake, or that you were getting a fair shake
By the officials.
The
by
football
officials.
team.
Okay, so explain that a little bit more detail, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, we've all watched football, and we've all watched bad officiating from time to time. It's consistent with Rainier Beach. We were in a playoff game up north. This was probably the worst, and we scored, kicked our PAT. The guy that came in to block it ran right into our kicker. He's hobbling off the field, no flag. I mean, it's just
Blatant.
so I yelled out to him. I said, "Hey, didn't you see that?" And he just turned and looked the other way. I said, "Well, I got the film. I'm going to send it in on Monday." And then he turned around and looked at me. And it was like, do we really have to do that? Aren't we here for the kids? I just, and Rainier Beach has had its issues in the past. But over the last 9 years, our teams are more disciplined than they've ever been. And it's just interesting. It's crazy. That game actually ended up in a huge fight.
And it
Huge
was not Rainier Beach's fault. The opposing team, and it's sad because I'm like, this really sets a bad precedence for us playing a predominantly white team. And I if any of you know anything about people from Hawaii, we really don't see color. We grew up with it all. And they had one black kid on their team, the team from up north, but those kids were calling our kids the N-word all night long. And per the standards of the field, words are not allowed like that on the field, not at high school level.
We don't allow that word to be said in our camp. It just, if you do, you have to roll 100 yards. They don't like rolling 100 yards because they end up throwing up before they get to the other end. It is not pretty. So you do that once, that N-word stays in their mouth.
Yeah.
So.
And that was like 5 years ago.
5 or 6 years
ago. 5 or 6
ago.
years ago, that game. And I think to myself, if that game were to happen today, I would fear what would happen because it's so much more hostile now, you know? Yeah, and so I told David, maybe you're supposed to actually go be an officiant. Get these, find some level ground here.
So that's what it is. And one of the officials I've known since I was with the Seahawks, she used to be on the chain gang. And I tell him, well, how come you don't give us a fair shake? And he's never given me an answer. He's giving me excuses. He's never given me an answer. So it is what it is. But you know what? These kids got to learn when things are against you, you got to learn how to fight the right way. And so I look at that as like, okay, you guys, most of these kids are in that situation anyway in life.
Mhm.
And so let's just use this as an opportunity to teach. So,
Cool, great, thank you.
yep.
Other folks, questions or comments?
So good to see you guys, Dave and Holly, and just all the things that you guys have been through, and just the way that the Lord's been so faithful to you and
Amen.
this ministry. It's just, thank you for coming and sharing the stories, and especially the impact that you're having on these lives. It's you can't measure that.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if I told you, our oldest Caleb, he's a mechanic. And
Oh,
wow.
awesome.
so talking about going into the trades,
Yeah.
it's really really big.
Yeah.
So
Is he local? Is he in
yeah,
Seattle?
yeah, he still lives with us. So
Okay.
Awesome.
so we'll have to have you guys over for dinner,
Yes,
and
we'll have to get together.
and then maybe he can come out and teach some mechanic classes for you guys.
That would be
That'd
good.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
David
you.
Holly, it's Jack Angus. I just wanted to ask if athletes are such a status in a school that kids follow them like they used to. Are they the leaders and the examples still?
To a certain extent, especially with basketball at Rainier Beach, because Rainier Beach is, I don't know how many state championships in basketball. We've actually made the football team kind of a prominent thing as well. Now, God has been very good to us. And you know, like this kid that just graduated, I mean, almost a 4.0 and in the top 3 tackles in the nation.
So do people.
Mm.
So with that kind of a stature, people are starting to look at the football team more, but also, you know, athletes will always be kind of a prominent thing. But I don't think at Beach it's as much as it was back when, you know, when I was going to school back in the 70s. So I don't know.
I actually think, if I can lean in on this, maybe you can dispute it or something, but I actually think social media has changed everything, and that
Yeah, it's
included.
not true.
Whereas it used to be like the athletes were, oh, you know, whatever sport they played, everybody wanted to, you know, be like that or follow them. So they were a very large part of the community that could draw kids to bring their grades up or to be ridiculously stupid.
Yeah.
So, but I think social media has actually captured these kids' minds so much that they've all become their own thing.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I never even thought about that, but yeah. I think everybody in our world, well, not everybody, but most of these young cats, they're all over that phone. They're all over selfies. It's a tough situation that we're facing because it's all self-centered. And so, you know, I'm kind of the reality king. So I just speak truth and, you know, tell them they got to put their phones away. When they come into the gym, So in off season, I work with them in training because they have such low ceilings. You see all these talented young men, and they don't know how to push themselves to get better. And so I work with them on that. And once we break through in the weight room, then we go after other things. Well, what else are you have a low ceiling on? Your education, your future. They don't even think about the future. That's part of the problem. So so I talked to them about, what do you want to do when you graduate? Because these next 3, 4, 2 years are going to go by so fast. Your head's going to spin. I said, you don't want to end up on the streets across the street over there in that little common area where all those drunks stay, former Rainier Beach athletes. They're getting drunk all the time, smoking weed. I said, that's not what you want to do. And so over time, it kind of seeps in there. And then they start to question, oh, what do they want to do? And that's when, things start to happen for them. But, there's so much trauma that these kids have gone through. It's hard to fathom, just like soul. And that's not even the worst of Soul's issues.
Yeah. He's the one that rescued his mom and saved his brother's life.
That got shot. When he was like 3 or 4 years old, his mom had a cousin that was gay, and she allowed him to rape him in front of the family when he was 3, 4, 5 years old. He was a little kid. And so
Yeah, it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
The kind of stuff that these kids and we're thinking this is one that we know of in a sea of how many thousands and thousands of children in this city multiplied by our country. It's overwhelming. So that's when you just have to dial back and go, okay, Lord, you just asked us to work this field, just this field.
yeah, this is the field we plow.
And it's a hard soil. It's changed drastically from the first day we stepped in.
Yeah.
Just 9 years ago. Our student body has flipped from predominantly African American to predominantly Somali. And I remember the first day that it was probably the third year we started seeing a host of them. I turned the corner in the hallway and there were 3 girls, coming towards me in full-fledged burqas, like completely covered up. I do not scare easily at all. And at that moment I was like, wow, Lord, if I didn't know you, I'd be like freaking out if I had to go to the school, and it's just that's how they dress. It's what it is, but it is a different look. And trying to understand the makeup of the culture, it's so beyond me. I'm at that age where it seems like everything's so beyond me, Lord. It's like, you know what? We just have to speak Jesus and love these kids, because that's what you've asked us to do. It just goes back to the very basic rule of keep it simple, and show them the light, speak the truth, speak the word, and let them in. And really, I feel like it's been like that from the beginning. Just show up and love on them.
And we realized early on that what we're doing, the dividends aren't going to be paid now. They're going to be down the road. And we're seeing such amazing interest with the kids that we work with. We've got a couple of kids, more than a couple of kids. We've got quite a few kids have graduated from college. 2 of them have their masters. And so, which is interesting because they didn't do well in school at Rainier Beach. And if you can't do good at Rainier Beach, I don't know. I mean, I look at the curriculum, I'm like, my goodness, you guys aren't passing? I said, even if you're alive, you should be able to pass this thing. you know, but it's just, it's not very hard.
Yeah.
But if we instill in them discipline, you know, I tell the kids, hey, what are you doing first thing in the morning? Get up. I said, okay, what do you do after that? Get dressed. I said, no, you need to make your bed. Make your bed first. You got to do something first. And so they, you know, I don't know if they're making it, but I keep on telling them, you better make your bed because it gets you on the right foot. But it's just simple things because there's been no training. There's been zero training for most of these kids. And because of gentrification, things are changing. You know, we had our first white kid come. He transferred actually out of O'Day, and he came his junior year because his stepdad's Black, and he wanted to come to Rainier Beach because he got tired of the prejudice that was going on at O'Day with the Black kids, because they didn't realize his stepdad was Black. And so he came and he was a superstar. Connor was unbelievable. But, you know, 2 years ago on Mother's Day, he got shot after his first year at UW. He had a full ride, academic ride there, and got shot. And it's just,
Connor was a 4-point-something student.
yeah, really sharp, good
Yeah.
kid, good kid.
He wanted to be a lawyer. He wanted to come back in the community, help people.
Yeah.
And it was all over the news. He's the one that was shot in the head right in front of his family home.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of we've experienced a lot of heartache and trauma along with the community here. But I just want to say that when we first came in to the Valley, we saw a ton of good ministry going on. We already knew about Urban Impact. We learned about dads and many other ministries. And we were like, Lord, are you sure you want us down here? We see a lot of stuff happening. I don't know why you need us down here. But then we realized it's the fringe. It's those student athletes who don't get the looks, who don't get a lot of playing time, whose voice is not heard because they aren't the loudest ones, or, you know, the superstars. And those are the ones that the Lord has called us to, the least of these. And it's not like it makes us super special or any different. We're just, that's our piece of the puzzle that the Lord's asked us to take care of. So,
and we understand these kids.
yeah.
Well, Hawaii's kind of looked at as a kind of a glamorous place to go and visit, but if you're born and raised there, it's a tough going. Yeah, there's a lot of fights. You got to learn how to fight. If not, you get beat up. And so, you know, we understand that kind of trauma. So it's good. And so God has given us a ministry that I couldn't have drawn up better. This is an amazing ministry for our gift set and our heart for people.
Excuse me, you know, I guess playing sports, the wonderful thing is you have a coach, and a coach can enshrine certain things in you, just like you guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a direct relationship because you've got a leader, you got to perform for that coach, and you look up to that coach, and they call you coach.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing. So it really begs the question of, okay, the athletes have a chance because they have a coach. What about those that aren't in that track? What would you like to see for them? There's 3/4 of the population that aren't in that track.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
maybe and the heartache here is that there may be, well, in some cases there's nothingness for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that that's the crack in our whole social trauma of high school, if you will.
Yeah.
And I wonder, knowing all that you know, what you would, the answer is probably not there right now, but when the two of you look at this with all this experience, what might be an opportunity for them in the future.
Well,
Are you
you-
talking about the ones who are non-athletes?
Yeah.
Non-athlete kids?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, hi.
There's a host of ministry to be done, always, right? The harvest is ripe, the workers are few. And I know this is our piece of the puzzle, like that little piece over there. And then you're right, there are all these others. And we're only catching the fringe. It's like, we don't work with the kids who are the superstars, who get the looks, who have private tutoring, that get to go to special workouts. David's taking the ones that don't get. He's taking the least of these, right? So for the rest of the populace of the school, it's like, I'm hoping that Young Life is showing up, since that's their motto, just show up.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
hoping
not.
that there's some other ministry that is there. If it is, I don't know. There are some.
Well, here's my take on it. I've been studying Caesarea Philippi, and it was a beautiful place, but it was the home to Baal worship, and then it turned into worship of the Roman
Pan.
and the Greek gods. And about a week before Jesus went to the cross, somewhere in there, he took his disciples, and that's when he asked them, "Who do men say that I am?" And then he says, "Oh, who do you say that I am?" And so that's where we get the difference between the Catholic belief of being Peter being the rock, or it's Christ being the rock, the bigger rock. But there's, to me, what the church has done. I think Jesus was showing us at the end of his ministry that we need to go into these dark places, that the stronghold is. And I see the church go away from that stuff when, focus on the family and Campus Crusade. I believe Campus Crusade used to be out of California. When they exited years ago, what happened? The light went out. So you look at these communities that we need to go into these dark places, because that's what I think Jesus has called us to. Now,
And you said this rock.
yeah. So when I look at the church, the church really needs to be connected to the Lord, because he is the one who has prepared the good works beforehand that we should walk in. And if we're not tied into him, we're not going to be doing his will. And that's what we've been called to do. And I think a lot of people they like doing good things, but I think I put a lot of blame on our leadership, because I think over the last 20, 25 years, the church has been preaching a self-help type of gospel, instead of, you're a sinner, you're going to go to hell unless you come to faith in Jesus Christ. That's it. Simple, and let the Lord do his thing. And so I think that's my opinion, is that the church has stayed away. I believe if the churches get right, go into the schools, and they come up with their training programs, the tutoring, and work with vocational schools. I think that would be the best thing to do. Churches need to get involved, because the liberal media, the liberal
Mindset.
the education board in America is not bent towards Christianity. In fact, they hate us. And so if we're not combating that, guess who wins? It's like the guy in Alaska, Hutch used to say the story all the time. He said he would bring his dogs and they go to a dog fight, and he always would pick the one that would win. And finally they said, well, which dog how do you know which dog's gonna win? He goes, that's easy. So when I feed during the week. And so that's what's happening in America. We're not feeding children in elementary, middle school, and high school truth. And so they're gonna go the way they're being taught. And so that's my belief, is I think the church needs to stand up and get involved,
Mhm.
because there's always churches around schools.
Mhm. We had actually, we started a tutoring about the third or fourth year in,
Yeah.
and we had a tutor that would come to the house, and we'd have upwards of 15 to 20 kids here. And I'd make dinner for everybody, and they would come after practice, and some would shower, some wouldn't. And they'd have a snack right when they got here and get to working, and then we'd break for dinner and have a big breaking bread time at the table so we could all sit and talk, and then they'd get back to work. And it was going so well, and the kids were doing so well. And then our tutor ended up taking a pastorate job in Seattle. So that kind of fell by the wayside, and we've been trying to pick up the slack ever since. And we actually thought we'd found a building on a property that we were going to be able to refurbish and get going on a tutoring program there. That's fallen through, and some other things have changed. But I found out from one of the moms that World Vision had actually started a tutoring program that they would go to churches and train the churches in how to offer it to the community that they're in. And it was going gangbusters. They had planted, I want to say, like 40 something around the country in various churches. And then they pulled the funding. And so some churches were able to continue it on their own, but most of them couldn't. And I thought, Lord, why is it that we don't see that as a huge, number one, need for your community, number two, an excellent tool for evangelism for your community, and number three, that's loving your neighbor. I mean, that should have been number one. So I think it just made me scratch my head and go, every church that couldn't afford it anymore, if they had reevaluated what they were looking at as far as their mission, it might have made a difference in that community. So I just see the church lacking.
And can I just chime in too? Because Jack, that was a great question. Sometimes I'll just say on behalf of just one organization, I don't volunteer, I'm not heavily involved or anything, but like Young Life has tried to get into some schools and they're told they can't come in. I know at our middle school, this is going back like 7 years, we tried to get them in there and they were not allowed, but yet the school was having a whole club for gay lesbian kids in middle school.
Yeah.
So we were told, just as a little kind of education, we were told you can start a club if it's student led.
Right.
So if there's in our churches and we have these strong kids that want to lead within their own school, then they can start their own club. So my daughter started a club, a Jesus club at the school. And guess what? We were allowed to have guest speakers.
Praise the Lord.
And who did we bring in? We brought in Young Life people. We brought in our youth pastor. We ran it through all the lunches throughout the day, and the Lord really used it. A lot of kids came who can't get to church or their parents wouldn't take them. But all that to say, the next year, guess what happened? Young Life got in.
Oh, what? Good.
And we were like, what? Because they had a chance and opportunity to walk through those doors, establish a relationship with the principal.
Right.
And so I just think sometimes, like what you're saying, it may have to come from the church, from strong young leaders in that church that are willing to kind of step out and just see what the Lord does in it, even if and we only did it for 1 year. It was a very short season. Just for what it's worth.
Julie, you're exactly right. And I appreciate you leaning in on that. And once again, though, it took the church. So it's the body of Christ that needs to make the move. And the body is made up of the individuals. And so it is those families. And collectively, we can wrestle the bushes, but it's got to be the Lord moving in that individual to make it happen. And like you and your family, praise the Lord, you're the vehicle he wanted to use, boom, right? And so, and it, yeah, it's like the Lord gets the glory, but you are obedient. Your daughter felt the Lord saying, go for this. She went for it. And that was the, like David likes to say, she hit the hole. She made the touchdown, right? She
Yeah.
took it in, and then Young Life came and followed up. And that's what we've got to do, is just keep praying for these people to hear. And I feel like sometimes there's so much noise with the social media and the media in general and the voices in the street, that there's a lot of Christians who are starting to fall asleep because they can't hear, because it's so noisy.
Yeah. And I truly did not mean that for any
Oh,
glorification.
No.
It's,
Yeah,
you're
I
exactly
get it.
right.
Yeah.
And so
It's totally the Lord's hand, but it's just to educate everybody and say, hey, our youth, they have actually some say in what happens at their school.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I did not realize that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we did with our 5 kids.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's why it was so interesting that when I went to go see the principal, that I just told him, I said, hey, the Lord's called me to come down here and to help out. And he just kind of gave me, he actually literally gave me keys to the locker room so I could get in. And it was kind of, I was like, okay, this whole trip has been, remember that movie Get Smart? I mean, that TV show Get Smart? That's how I feel. I feel like I've come to this door and it's closed, but when I take that final step, the door opens up. And that's how this whole thing has rolled out. And so maybe I ought to call it Get Smart
I
Ministries.
don't know.
Right.
Get faith. It's like get faith.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been heartaches as well. I mean, it's, losing 2 kids to gun violence, a mom to suicide, supporters just having crazy things happen to them. Oh man, it's been a battle, but we've already won. And that's the thing, is that we don't have to win. We have already won. Jesus is out of that grave.
Man.
And so let's just take the hill.
Man, Alan, go ahead, man. I see you wanted to talk.
Can you hear me?
Sometimes it's off and
A little
on.
low.
I'm sorry
There.
about that.
Here we go.
That's
Okay,
better.
well, I'll just keep trying and make sure these things work.
We can
I
hear
just
you.
been listening, and David, and Holly, my gut is in knots, and that's a good thing and a not so good thing. It's both.
Yes.
It's both. But there's so much to be grateful for what you guys have stepped into here, years and years ago, and are going to live your life out this way. And then there's just so much more. We just pray that the church, Big C, can step up in ways that we haven't seen before. And and it's as you say, it's the body of Christ, and it's one person at a time, and making victories one person at a time. And you have done that. How many young men are going to be in heaven because of you guys? All right. And you've got those victories, and God bless you guys for that. But in the midst of all this, the social noise that you talk about out there, it is deafening, the social noise.
Yeah.
We have new obstacles to deal with. And so I just wanted to say thank you. I might follow up with you if Garrett, maybe you can get me their contact information. I'm right now in Minneapolis. I'm back here for a while. I've been with the fellowship for 26 years.
Wow.
And started in the late 90s or mid 90s, I guess. But I'd like to ask you guys, with today being the National Day of Prayer, if there's some specific things that are on your heart for your ministry that you could share with our group today on this day of prayer, and we can each individually and collectively add you guys to our prayer list for what you're doing.
Yeah. So for me, is to break the bonds that the enemy has had over the hearts and minds of the people we work with, and just the valley in general. and that we will all walk worthy of the call in which we have been called. That's just, you know, when in Acts 26:18, I think, something like that. It's, yeah, it says that he'll send someone to them to turn them from darkness to light, from the power of Satan to God. And so that's who we feel, what we feel the Lord has done. He's called us to go into this darkness and to be that light. And it's a tremendous responsibility. And at the same time, we're in prayer, and we're looking for opportunities to share the gospel and to come along somebody who's hurting. And I remember one time, this was so crazy. There were these 3 guys, and they were playing around with this one girl. And one of the guys was the girlfriend, boyfriend to the girl. And they were just slapping around, and then they ended up punching each other. And I'm like, I started yelling at her from across the parking lot, and they just stopped. And this was like my 2nd or 3rd year there. So these people didn't know who I was. I just yelled them, stop. And I walked over there and I said, young man, is that how you treat a woman? That's not how you treat a woman. You guys need to respect her. This is your sister. You need to take care of her. And young lady, that is not becoming of a young lady. You need to act like you're a woman if you want these guys to treat you like a lady. So anyway, it just stopped them in their tracks, and they just kind of looked at each other like, 2 of them I didn't know. They're like, who is this guy? But I had to make a point. And after that, I never saw him do that again. The boyfriend and the girlfriend, Tori, I said, are you taking care of your girlfriend? I said, you need to honor her. And so they're still together. As the last time I saw him was like a year and a half ago. So it's kind of funny how there's no training, and yet even in this thing where they're punching each other, punching them in the face, I was like, what in the world? It's so bizarre. But God has given us authority as a church. I think that's part of the problem. We don't understand that God, Jesus at the end in Matthew says, all authority has been given to me. And so I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's go. I might not have all the, like I said, might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I know how to hit that hole when it's there. It's like, it's time to go, baby.
Hey,
I
that's
just want
awesome.
to say thank you. I have to sign off.
Yes, thank
so
you.
much.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a great
God bless
day.
you.
God
Thank
bless you. Keep doing
Okay.
everything. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, hey, Alan, since you asked, why don't you say that prayer right now for them and their ministry and close us out here? And, yeah, that'd be great.
I'd be glad to. Again, are these working okay? You guys
Those
hear
are
me
working
okay?
okay.
Could I
say one more thing? I just want to read you this verse. This is what the Lord gave us when we came, when we were coming across literally the bridge, not knowing where we were going, but David knew we were supposed to go to Rainier Valley. And then he said, I think it's Rainier Beach High School. And this was the verse that he gave us. Hear, O Israel, you are to cross over the Jordan today, to go in to dispossess nations greater and mightier than you, cities great and fortified up to heaven, a people great and tall, the sons of the Anakim, whom you know and of whom you have heard it said, who can stand before the sons of Anak? Know therefore today that he who goes over before you as a consuming fire is the Lord your God. He will destroy them and subdue them before you, so you shall drive them out and make them perish quickly, as the Lord has promised you. And that,
Holly, where is that? What
that
verse
is
is that?
Deuteronomy 9,
1 through 3.
Before Alan talks, I want to leave you with something. I know most of these guys pretty well. I've been around for 25 something years. I lose track now. I don't like to admit how long it is, but you are 2 of the sweetest people, and we're in love with you. I want to leave you with that today.
oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Wow.
God bent us that way, like bang, 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 that way.
It's, well, you feel the ohana.
Yes.
I I wanted to say something too. I've been kind of here in the shadows. Hello. Hello. And I just want to say my husband, I was telling him he's not able to join. He goes to work very early, but he was in Hawaii when as a teenager. He lived there. His dad was stationed in the military, and so we're from this area. And he had a Seattle Seahawks jersey on, and he was in Kailua.
Yeah,
And
that's where we're from.
Yes, and he ran into your mother there. He was
What?
in a store, and he said, and she came up to him, and he had a I won't get it right.
Dan Dornick.
Dornick.
Yes, Dan Dornick shirt on, and she said, "Oh, you must be a Seahawk fan. My son, with your name is a Seahawk player." I'm sorry, all the names get so confusing to me.
Yeah, wow.
And so he said, "You be sure." He wanted me to tell you that, so he made me.
That's hilarious.
That is
So,
that is something. You know what? When David's mom is with the Lord now, but whenever we hear stories like that, or just out of the blue, I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but just the other day we were looking at something and her picture popped up, or before that something happened where something came up with my dad, and I just feel like whenever stuff like this happens, I feel like they get to tell Jesus, "Can you please send a note and say hi to my family for me?"
Yes. So he made me repeat. He made me repeat that, and I'm like, I'm going to get that all confused because I'm so bad at all that stuff. But
oh my
that was
God,
like a kiss from heaven today for you.
Thank you so much.
Let me do this, you guys. I'll jump in here and wrap us up in our prayer because it is beyond
Sorry.
30-minute whelm.
That's
And we
why
can stay on
we
later.
talked
I mean, I'd love to chat more with you guys, but I'll probably do it at a later time. But anyway, this was wonderful, and so much here. So let's just bow our heads and say, Lord, we are so grateful for the servants that you have called in Holly and David and all that they are doing to represent you, to be you, the body of Christ, in these tough situations. There's so much apparently, so much force, so many demonic forces that are working against us, and they see it every day, and they are committed to being a light in the midst of a lot of darkness. What a blessing that is that they've accepted that call, they've taken on that call, and they have run into it with full vigor over these past many years. We ask that you bless them, if it be one boy at a time, one student at a time, one family at a time, whatever it be, that you can allow some of these families that are just caught up in darkness and don't even know it to see the light, because they've met David and they've met Holly, and they are just sensing an aroma of something completely different and something that they seek and want to have. So Lord, their ministry is there because you've ordained it, and there's others that you've called around it. They're board members, they're supporters, they're volunteers. There's so much need here in this particular pocket of Seattle, the city that many of us grew up in. Just continue to bless them. And on this day of prayer, we just listen to their prayer that they can be that light where there is where they refer to as the bonds of Satan, the darkness, but the light overcomes the darkness. So thank you for this time together with David and Holly today, and we look towards whatever you're going to call us to do and follow up in conversation, and just let all of us on this call who are the body of Christ to do what you've called us to do, to support our brothers and sisters and bring the truth and the light of the gospel to so many that have not yet heard it. So bless them and bless their ministry. On this National Day of Prayer, this is our prayer for Paraclete Ministries. In Jesus' name, amen.
Oh my gosh, thank you so
Thank
much. That was
Amen.
beautiful.
Yes.
Amen.
Wonderful, you guys.
Amen.
Wonderful.
And you guys are part of the fellowship and always welcome. And you can come here any Thursday. We've got Andy Tolles next week, and you should be getting our emails every week now, David. I think I gave our guy that. And I had a thought, just so when we were at Dad's, we met a young guy there named Paris, and he runs a sneaker store in downtown.
Huh.
And he told his story, and reminded me of some of your kids, like his single mom, they didn't have enough for clothes almost, and he just wanted to make money and help mom. But there was no way for a teenager to do that other than selling weed, which is what he started doing. And he did well, and he like provided for his family. And, by the grace of God, he never went to prison, but he met Marvin Charles and turned his life around and started a store. He had no need for college or time for college, but now he's saying, now that I'm a real business owner, people I grew up with come to me for mentorship and train, ideas, and he's giving back to the dads, and he goes to their Bible study on Wednesdays. And
So
that kind of mentorship, I think would help your kids. And the
Yep.
idea, you don't have to be a lawyer or doctor, but not only the trades, but also going to business and starting businesses. And if there was ways, even young kids, he said he's training up his teenagers in the business. How do you run business? How do you do, run a store or do other things?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. And I know
Yeah,
they,
that's great.
Urban Impact does their Sharks at the Beach, and they have a whole financial piece they do.
yep.
Yeah.
So his name is Paris, you said?
Yeah, I'll send you his contact info. Paris is what I remember. I forget his last name.
Paris Johnson, he's soulmates.
Oh, that's right. He is my brother.
Soulmates. And
Well, that's his store. Yeah, Soulmates.
so David
Johnson.
Holly,
There's a link in the chat
Okay,
for his YouTube.
yeah,
yeah.
okay,
Okay.
Anyway, David and Holly, we are delighted to have you.
thank you.
Thank you.
If we had another hour or two, I think our questions would just keep on coming. But did you two come as kids out of Hawaii together? That's one question. Secondly, the term paraclete, is that a pun on 2 football shoes, or is it dealing with the Holy Spirit?
It is the
So
Holy
double
Spirit.
entendre there.
Yes,
And
it
but the real
is. Yeah.
one of the questions is, now that we're into a small intimate group here, is what about the female athletes, the gals? We happen to have a granddaughter who's a Red Hawk sophomore on the basketball team,
Yeah.
Susie Acom. And that's a rough place to be in. These kids, I mean, the drama is paramount.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
So
unbelievable.
anyway, quick thoughts on Paraclete from the Holy Spirit, Hawaii, and we are in love with you guys. Go ahead.
Thank you. So we met, I was back home after my junior fall semester season, and we'd met. I just finished running the beach. I came home, I was gonna jump in the pool, and
I looked over the fence and I saw him, so I just jumped in the pool. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We could say stuff like that at this age, right? With the small.
That was the no bikini day. Okay.
And so,
Actually,
my dad-
the recording's still going, just so that you're aware.
okay, yeah.
Banks hadn't
Time
stopped
to
recording.